Well, breaking news just coming in. The growth numbers for the first quarter are out. The economy has contracted by 0.7% in the first quarter. The largest negative contributor to growth in GDP was the trade, catering and accommodation industry, which decreased by 5.9% and contributed minus 0.8 of a percentage point to the GDP growth. The manufacturing industry contracted by 3.7% and contributed minus 0.5 of a percentage point to GDP growth. 7 out of 10 divisions reported negative growth rates in the first quarter. The largest contributor to the decrease was the petroleum, chemical products, rubber and plastic products division. In contrast, the mining and quarrying industry increased by 12.8% and contributed 0.9 of a percentage point to GDP growth. The agriculture, forestry and fishing industry rebounded in the first quarter of 2017 on the back of 8 consecutive quarters of contraction. The industry increase of 22.2% in the first quarter of 2017 was mainly as a result of increases in the production of field crops and horticultural products. The contraction follows the GDP decline of 0.3% in the fourth quarter of 2016. In 2016, the economy grew only 0.3% for the year. Well, Chief Economist of Fission Group Dawie Ruud joins us now on the phone line. A very good morning to you, Dawie. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, what's your first response to the figure? Are you disappointed?
Yes, good morning. I must tell you, this is a huge disappointment. I expected the economy to actually grow slightly in the first quarter, so there was a big disappointment. And what I'm particularly concerned about is the huge negative on the manufacturing industry, because manufacturing is one of those industries where we certainly can create more jobs for the South African workers in South Africa. So certainly this is a huge disappointment. And so-called technically, the economy then contracted for two quarters, subsequent quarters, which means that one can say that the economy is in fact in a recession now. But I've got another definition for a recession. The reality is whether the economy is growing by 1% or contracting by 1% doesn't really matter. The reality is that the South African economy's performance is absolutely dismal. And if we don't start doing something to get economic growth up and running, I'm afraid poverty is likely to keep on increasing, unemployment and the like. So this was really a huge disappointment.
Well, what does it mean for the common person or the common South African? How will it reflect on the household budget?
Well, we've already seen some of these numbers. We saw that unemployment went up. That's one obvious place where one can see these sort of dismal numbers. If we look at things like, for example, insolvencies, that will be going up. If we look at poverty, that is likely to keep on going up. So I'm afraid all those numbers that are really important for the man on the streets, all those numbers are pointing in the wrong direction. So, and I would say that if there's one number in South Africa that really, really matters, it is economic growth, because we need economic growth in order to address all these different social and economic ills that they have in the country, and we just don't have that.
Now, also, the national budget tabled in February this year, the National Treasury said that South Africans can expect growth of about 1.3% in 2017. Do you think we can still be able to achieve this target?
You have to remember, when you look at the quarter numbers, like economic growth quarter on quarter, that can be quite a volatile number, and it's quite possible that the second quarter can be quite a nice positive. But those numbers are very volatile for different statistical reasons. I don't think 1.3% will be achievable. I need to do my estimates for economic growth this year, and I will probably bring my estimates down to below 1% now after these numbers. So I don't think 1% will be achieved even. So no, 1.3% is certainly out of the window. But more importantly, one should ask the question what's going to happen next year and the year thereafter. And the reality is with government, current policies of government, we have a destructive government to a large extent, and we are paying the price for that now. And next year is unlikely to be much better.
Well, Mr. Ruud, just before we let you go, I have one last question. Seeing on Twitter, people are hinting at the fact that we are in a recession. Are we in a recession now? Is it a technical recession? Or what is your thoughts on this?
Yes, well, people say if you have 2 negative quarters, then you are in a recession. I've got another definition. If your economy grows below potential, if you see an increase in unemployment and an increase in poverty, those sort of things are more important to me. And we are seeing these sort of things. So we're not in a recession now. We have been in a recession for quite some time.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on the phone. That was Chief Economist, Efficient Group, Davi Ruet on the phone line. Also joining us on the phone line is market analyst Tony Modise. A very good morning to you, sir. Your first response on the figure, are you disappointed?
Good morning. Definitely, we're quite disappointed. I mean, looking at what was expected, the number that was expected, it was 0.9%. And, I mean, they came down to 0.7%, which is like 4% lower than the previous number. So, I mean, what we were anticipating was a rise because of the rise in commodity prices, a rise in the manufacturing sector, which numbers also today came out quite disappointing. This is really quite disappointing, and I mean it really raises concern about the future of South African economy.
And Tony, how do you think this will reflect on the common person's household budget?
It's going to be quite a tough year. I mean, with normal household budgets. I mean, like Davi said earlier, South African markets or South African economy has already been under pressure. Remember, we just fresh from 3 credit downgrades, and we're expecting some more downgrades as well as time goes by. So, I mean, we've already been under pressure, and we are hoping that for the fact that there's rain this year and the commodity prices are positive, but the challenge right now is there's a rise in unemployment rate, and now the companies are not doing well. Some of the companies are moving out of the country, of which things might even get worse as time goes by.
Well, let me just ask you about the recession question. You said that we have been in a recession for a long time, or do you think that it is only now that South Africa will actually feel the effects of the GDP going down more? And what can the South Africans expect to go on from here?
Remember, these are some of the numbers that investors look at. So they invest in the South African economy. And, I mean, this shows that for the fact that South African market has been downgraded, and now there's also a negative GDP. This shows that there's stagnant growth in the South African. There's literally no growth at all currently in the South African market. So what we should expect is we should try to readjust our credit and try to focus a little bit on. The government needs to focus on stimulating growth a little bit. So, I mean, we can come out of this trouble, because it's really scary, it's really concerning.
Tony, you mentioned that there is no growth at all in the economy, but we saw the agricultural production sector improving slightly with record production of maize. So why then do we still have negative figures overall when some sectors are actually trying to pull their weight?
Looking at the industrial sector, how the manufacturing sector rather, how it performed last year compared to how it performed last year, they had to cover most of the backlogs of their last year's progress. One of the hugest thing that is actually pulling South African economy back is unemployment rate. Unemployment rate is the most important part of the economy's GDP. If people don't have jobs, that means that the economy is under pressure. There's no spending power. So when there's no spending power, that means that the economy shrinks. While it shrinks, companies closed. I mean, we just saw that GM Motors is moving out of the country, of which we're starting to have there's going to be like over 650 people losing their jobs. African Bank is about to retrench also 600 employees. So all of the sentiments, they're really adding pressure to the economy. And when they adding pressure to the economy, the guys that are at the bottom, they are the ones that are feeling the pressure more. We might be seeing the rain strong. We might be seeing, we might be getting the benefit of a decrease in petrol prices, but then this might not be sustainable moving forward, looking at how our economy is growing.
Well, thank you so much to the market analyst Tony Modise joining us there on the phone line and giving us some of his input on the gross domestic product being contracted by 0.7%.